Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Links are in the description below. Please show some love of the author and me. On to the show.
To summon the angels to come, the Holy Light Pope must personally take action and use the Holy Light 3 artifacts in his hand as a medium. So, when the infinite holy light on the holy mountain unfolded and the angel knight army came, in fact, the opponents Su Mu and the others had to face were only the 10 angel knight squads. When the knight's spear in Agnes' hand turned into a black meteor and attacked the angel knight squad that was charging at the forefront, the angel knight squad also discovered the ground in the distance, commanding the death knight. Agnes of the regiment charge. Perhaps it's by nature, or maybe is property restraint. When Agnes threw the knight's spear, which represented a challenge, the angel knight team charging at the forefront immediately gave up Su Mu, turned around, and moved towards Agnes and death on the ground. The knights go. Su Mu was naturally overjoyed when she found the opportunity of Agnes' advanced sanctuary. Agnes needs to kill and devour a team of angel knights in the advanced sanctuary, and Su Mu will naturally help. So, when the first angel knight team swooped towards the ground and charged towards the location of the death knights, Su Mu stepped forward, activated the phase shift, and appeared behind the first angel knight team. The bones were cut out with a sword. A pitch-black sword light stretches across the void. Block all the follow-up angel knight squads. What Agnes needs is just a squad of angel knights, not all angel knight squads. That being the case, the rest of the angel knight team will naturally be solved by them, without Su Mu's orders. After realizing this, Augustine, Nefarian, Rhoda Monroe, Banshee King, and Nightmare Scythe also selected a team of angel knights. 10 angel knight squads. Agnes split 1, Rhoda Monroe split 2, and the remaining 4 Sanctuary Undead split 1, and finally only 3 Angel Knight squads were left to surround Su Mu. Middle. The strength of the top 630 Angel Knight squad comes from the Angel Battle Array inherited from real angels. Once the Battle of Angels unfolded, the 10 Angel Knights in a squad were almost fused together. Every attack of the Angel Knight as the captain is a superimposed attack of the 10 Angel Knights. Every defense of the Angel Knight as the captain also distributes the damage evenly to each individual in the squad. In this way, coupled with the inherent attack and defense enhancement capabilities of the Angel Battle Formation, the Angel Battle Formation enjoys a great reputation in the entire game world. This is not a real Angel Battle Formation. According to legend, the real Angel Battle Formation is enough to superimpose the attack and defense of 100,000 or even 10,000 real angels together. That kind of powerful Angel Battle Formation. Even if the Angel Legion faces an existence far beyond its own ranks, there is a great possibility to kill it. Of course, the more angels that make up the Angel Battle Formation, the higher the requirements for the angel as the leader. The God of Light. There are probably not many war angels under his command who can exert the power of the Angel Battle Formation to the limit. With Su Mu's strength, it was easy to deal with the attack of the 3 Angel Knight squads. The purpose of the Holy Light Empire is to delay time. After discovering the opportunity for Agnes to advance to the sanctuary, Su Mu would not mind delaying the time to protect Agnes to advance smoothly. So, while casually resisting the attacks of the 3 Angel Knight squads, Su Mu put most of his mind on the battle between Agnes and the first Angel Knight squad. The attack and defense of the Angel Knight squad are superimposed, derived from the Angel Battle Array inherited from the real angel. Agnes and the superposition of halo and power of the Death Knights are derived from the characteristics of the Death Knights. So, when the first Angel Knight squad swooped down and charged against the Death Knights, Agnes, who took the lead to challenge, also activated her power at this moment. The Death Lance was back in her hands. With the order of Agnes, her subordinates have reached more than 2,000 Death Knights and 10 Fear Knights at the same time to develop their halo skills. The Death Halo unfolds. The aura of fear unfolds. When the more than 2,000 death halos and 10 fear halos unfolded, even without the fusion of Agnes, the strong power of death and fear made the surrounding Holy Light Legion retreat as much as possible. Subsequently, Agnes' own aura also unfolded. The leader of the so-called Death Knights is also the only Scourge Knight in the Anduin and Anreal continents. When Agnes unfolded her death aura, the more than 2,000 death auras were superimposed and merged together. The range of the death halo radiation suddenly expanded 100-fold. The power of death that spreads out within the halo is also increased 100-fold. The large number of Holy Light Legionaries who had not had time to escape this area suddenly cried out under the erosion of the power of death. In just a few breaths, they were completely corroded by the power of death and turned into a head and lost consciousness. Of the undead. When Agnes unfolded her own fear aura, the auras of the 10 fear knights under her command were also superimposed and merged with her own fear aura. The power of fear spreads. It can not only arouse the fear in the enemy's heart, but also greatly reduce the enemy's resistance to the force of death. Agnes is the pinnacle of the legendary rank. When the power of more than 2,000 Death Knights and 10 Fear Knights was superimposed and fused together by her, Agnes' power had already broken through the upper limit of the legendary rank and entered the sanctuary level. At this time, the Angel Knight squad arrives. One side dies, the other side is holy light. One side of the dead, one side of the living. Two diametrically opposed knights, two diametrically opposed camps. Charge! 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 The captain of the Angel Knight squad clenched the pure white lance in his hand, absorbed the holy light that came from the holy light field, adjusted his strength to the peak, and attacked Agnes. The same goes for Agnes. The dark death lance is filled with the pure power of death, with a sharp breath that will tear even the space, towards the captain of the Angel Knight squad. Slowly, the two knights were getting closer. The power of holy light that comes with the angel battle array radiates, constantly burning and purifying every member of the Death Knights. The death halo and fear halo of the Death Knights also spread, constantly polluting and purifying. Corrode the 10 Angel Knights. Holy light versus death. Living vs undead. Under Sumu's gaze, two figures, one black and one white, passed by. With the crisp sound of impact, a deep trace appeared on Agnes' armor. Similarly, there is also a wound that directly tore the armor, which appeared on the captain of the Angel Knight squad. Seeing this scene, Sumu smiled. After all, the Angel Knight team came from outside forces, although with the passage of time, the power of the Angel Knight team will become stronger and stronger. But wouldn't it be better to just wipe them out in the first place? Take Sumu as an example and constantly sharpen yourself. Agnes has had four-dimensional attributes that are no less than the legendary rank as early as the epic rank. Now, stepping into the legendary pinnacle in terms of absolute strength, Agnes' strength far exceeds other legendary pinnacles. Not to mention, in every day she never fought, Agnes never gave up to constantly hone her combat skills and skills. Perhaps, like herself, she couldn't directly upgrade her skills to full level with free points. But, after countless days and nights of training, Agnes has already cultivated her skills and Dark Knight skills to a level of perfection. Under the same rank, Agnes is not afraid of any challenge. The first confrontation is just the beginning. After staggering, two rays of light, one black and one white, galloped across the ground, drawn a circle and then confronted again. This time, the strength of the Angel Knight squad was a little stronger again. But the results of the second confrontation still did not change much. There is one more mark on Agnes' armor, and on the shoulder of the Angel Knight squad leader, there is an extra muzzle that runs through the front and rear. A trace of holy light radiated out. Looking inward from the wound that runs through the front and back, the captain of the Angel Knight squad has no flesh and blood, only a piece of holy light like Wang Yang. Over and over again. Charge and fight again and again. when the strength of the Angel Knight team became stronger and stronger, from the beginning of the sanctuary to the lower sanctuary, and then from the lower sanctuary to the middle sanctuary, Agnes finally had a wound on her body. The death armor was torn apart. The pale skin on his shoulders and the pale flesh on the road were revealed. From this moment on, the tide of battle began to reverse. With the help of the power of the Death Knights, Agnes has also stepped into the sanctuary level, but this is not her own power after all, and it cannot be continuously improved. The power of the Angel Knights team continues to improve with the passage of time, from the crushing at the beginning to the latter being evenly matched and finally being surpassed in the end. In this kind of confrontation, Agnes' momentum is getting stronger and stronger. Or, when the combat power of the Angel Knight team surpassed her, Agnes really broke out of her combat power. Strong is strong. Fight more and more bravely. Even though the injuries on her body increased and became serious again and again, she did not stop her charge at all. With the feeling in her heart, Agnes is waiting. She is waiting for some time. Waiting for the moment when you can leap over and completely defeat the Angel Knight squad, and at the same time break away from the Death Knight's rut and evolve into a real Death Knight. Slowly, the strength of the Angel Knight squad began to climb from the middle sanctuary to the upper sanctuary. Same. Of the 10 Angel Knights that formed the Angel Battle Formation, 4 already showed the performance of light quality, almost completely assimilated by the holy light, and they are about to light up. The charge continues. This time is their final confrontation. Because of the terrifying combat power that is about to approach the upper sanctuary, the Angel Knight team intends to kill Agnes in one fell swoop. At the same time, after this blow, the Angel Knight disappears. Naturally, there is no next blow. It can be said. This confrontation is the fatal blow of the Angel Knights team, and it is also the most serious crisis in the history of Agnes. But, in the face of this force, Agnes remained calm. Charge! 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 Keep charging with the Death Knights. When the last confrontation came, when faced with the pure white blade for the last time, Anjani raised the death lance in her hand without showing any weakness. Stab out. At the same time, Sky Shading Ring, quietly open, with the piercing sound of breaking the air, the pure white lance of the Angel Knight squad leader pierced through Agnes' body, and Agnes' death lance also pierced the body of the Angel Knight squad leader. The final blow is released. The members of this Angel Knight team began to disappear, and even the captain's figure became a little illusory at this moment. This is the final blow. Having pierced through Agnes' body and delayed enough, their mission has been accomplished. But this is not the point. At the last moment when the Angel Knight team was about to disappear, with the feeling in her heart, Agnes opened the halo of Scourge that she had never opened. As thin as tide. When the aura of Scourge was turned on, Agnes' body was amplified by the Death Aura and the Fear Aura, and the extremely pure death force began to flow into the body of the Angel Knight squad leader along the Death Lance dash. Time required. Holy light is boiling. Under the burning and purification of the endless holy light in the body of the Angel Knight squad leader, the power of death is still stubbornly eroding inward. Slowly, holy light weakened. In the body of the Angel Knight squad leader's completely holy light, the core finally emerged. When the core of this point emerged, the power of death seemed to be driven by something and couldn't wait to pounce towards the core of that point. What is the core of the Angel Knights? Divine power. It comes from the miracles on the holy mountain and the divine might of the God of light contained in the miracles. The core of this point can also be regarded as a little divine power of the God of holy light. The pure power of death is naturally impossible to shake the divine power, even if this power is only insignificant. But when the aura of condemnation also turns on, this steady stream of death power is driven and supported by the halo of Scourge, continuously pouring into the body of the Angel Knight squad leader, continuously eroding that little divine power. Slowly, That point is like the first light, as if the divine power of the last hope is beginning to dim. Shift from soft white to dull black. God damn it. Heavenly Nights. Aura of condemnation. The function of the shading ring can be summed up in the simplest words: reading God. Pollute holy light, transform holy light. Pollute divine power, transform divine power. Defeating the Angel Knight Squad and devouring the Angel Knight Squad is the opportunity for Agnes to advance to the sanctuary. However, the fact that the Angel Knight Squad contains the divine power of the God of Light. This is the key to Agnes' transformation. Slowly, divine power was polluted and eroded from pure white to deep black. When this transformation is completely over, centering on the divine power that has turned into pitch black, the vast ocean of holy light in the body of the Angel Knight Squad leader is also quickly dyed black like it has been stained with ink. Next moment. In the screams of terror and despair from the captain, he, who was about to be turned into light, burst open and turned into countless pure death powers to be absorbed by Agnes. Not just him. Even the teammates behind him who were also about to turn into light were polluted by the halo of divine scourge at this moment. Light and death are opposites. There is no distinction. The holy light restrains death, and death restrains the holy light as well. The end of light is the end of darkness. The end of darkness is also the purest light. The endless holy light turned into the endless power of death. Driven by the polluted divine power, the power of death transformed by this endless holy light was instilled in Agnes' body like a great river. At this moment, the Yuan Qi vortex appears. Agnes finally fulfilled her opportunity and started the process of advancing towards the sanctuary. The advancement of every sanctuary is a long process. Because under the refinement of the endless torrent of energy, only an existence that has entered the peak legend can wash away the brilliance and enter the sanctuary. Only after stepping into the sanctuary can you nativize your skills. No doubt. To advance on this battlefield, Agnes' timing is not good. But when the next situation happened, this battlefield haunted by holy light became the best time and the best place for Agnes' advanced sanctuary. The aura of Scourge expands infinitely. All the holy light within the scope of the halo of Scourge has been polluted, and the power of holy light, which never tolerates any impurities, has been polluted into the profound power of death and poured into Agnes' body, prompting her to continue. Evolution. Angel battle formation is so. This is the case with the holy light array. Even the holy light field formed by the countless holy light magic circles on the holy mountain is madly pumping energy at this moment, constantly transforming from the power of holy light to the power of death. A huge empire. How many years did it take to build the city of holy light and the holy light domain on the holy mountain? When the endless holy light is polluted and transformed, and instead becomes the energy source of the advanced sanctuary of Agnes, the vortex of vitality in the sky is not important. One after another dark energy torrents wrapped Agnes in it. With the support of this almost endless energy, Agnes was rapidly transforming. Suddenly, a jet-black beam of light that contained the ultimate power of death rose into the sky. When this pitch-black beam of light shot up into the sky, the entire battlefield, the entire city of holy light, and even all the creatures on the entire holy mountain couldn't help trembling. Death strikes. At this moment, they all seemed to feel that an ultimate was born. At this moment, it seems that every living being feels that death is coming to him. Slowly, the energy torrent begins to wane. The dark beam of light also began to disappear. But in the center of that pitch-black beam of light, an ultimate profession that surpasses even the desolate night, is deeper and more terrifying than the desolate power was born. The master of the power of death, the Death Knight. With the help of that little divine power and the endless holy light, Agnes finally broke her rut and evolved from a member of the Death Knight family to the ultimate profession in charge of the power of death, the real Death Knight. Agnes at this time is different from before. Also called the Death Knight. The former Agnes was only the patron of the power of death, But now Agnes is the master of the power of death, head of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Death Knight. Birth at. Actually, it's not just Agnes that has changed. When Agnes broke the abandonment of the Death Knights and advanced from the Scourge Knight to the real Death Knight, the Death Knights under her command also changed. Before this, it has always been the leader of the Death Knights who supplied him, that is, Agnes. After Agnes stepped into a real Death Knight, the pureness around her was incredible, as if the power of death in Sumu's soul came from the origin of the plane of death and began to seep into that person. The body of the Death Knight, that feared knight. At this moment, Agnes has been able to give back to the Death Knights who have been supporting her. Under the feedback of this pure and unbelievable power of death, the Death Knights who had been staying in the early stage of the Lord rank began to advance, and the Fear Knights who had always stayed in the Epic rank began to move towards climb with the Scourge Knight. In a world, there is only one Death Knight order. In a world, there is only one Knight of Scourge. This is the characteristic of the Death Knight family. But when this Death Knight order has a real Death Knight who wields the power of death, this characteristic is broken. Death Knight can continue to evolve towards Dread Knight. The Fear Knight can also continue to evolve towards the Scourge Knight. Because the real Death Knight is the king of all Death Knights in the entire game world. When the king appears, then many Death Knights and Fear Knights will naturally no longer need to support their leaders, trying to build a new king. 0. Ask for flowers. Since then, Agnes is not just a true Death Knight who has mastered the power of death, an ultimate profession. It is the king of all Death Knights in the entire game world. Unless a new king appears. Otherwise, the countless Death Knights in the entire game world will become Agnes's subordinates. It needs her to conquer world by world. Clatter, clatter, clatter. The crisp sound of hooves resounded in the void. After completing the advance, Agnes rode her warhorse towards the direction of Sumu in the sky. With her advancement, the skeleton warhorse that was one with her also evolved again and became a death warhorse. The 4 hoofs were burning with a faint blue soul fire, and the death warhorse galloped in the void as if it were on the ground. When she arrived at Sumu's side, Agnes turned over and dismounted and knelt down on one knee in the void. My lord, this subordinate has lived up to his trust and has successfully advanced. From a Scourge Knight to a real Death Knight, Agnes' image has changed again. Her death armor is profound and simple, and has reached the quality of the holy artifact. Her death lance and death sword have also advanced to the quality of the holy artifact. 0. Of course, this is not the most important thing. Most importantly, with this advancement, Agnes' full coverage helmet finally became the same style as Sumu, revealing a small half of her fair and delicate face. Even from the gap between the helmets, Sumu could faintly see Agnes' long blonde hair. For the first time, Sumu saw Agnes' face. Also for the first time, Sumu found out that Agnes looks nothing less than Corolla, the natural princess Mononoke. Okay. Very good. Very good. Followed the longest Agnes advanced, and as he expected, broke the abandonment of his own race and became one of the ultimate occupations, the Death Knight. How can Sumu not get excited? He stepped forward and lifted Agnes up. He chuckled. From now on, you have really become the leader of the 4 knights of the apocalypse under this king, the Death Knight. Death Knight. Desolate Knight. The 4 knights representing the Doomsday Apocalypse have gathered the second. Sumu's mood at this time is no less than when he was in the Advanced Sanctuary. Sumu was excited. Sanctuary Undead rejoice. The players of the many undead camps were also excited. The Holy Light camp is miserable. The Angelic Knights have all disappeared. Apart from delaying the Holy Light Empire for more than 10 minutes, not only did they not kill any undead in the sanctuary, but instead gave birth to the new sanctuary of Agnes. This kind of bitterness, is it something other people can experience? Now, The last trump card is consumed, the miracle is no longer, the divine power disappears, and the holy light domain also loses most of it. How can they resist the more powerful undead army? A time. Many powerhouses above the holy mountain showed despair. It is the grief on the face of the Holy Light Pope himself. Today is the day of the destruction of the Holy Light Empire. Because of Agnes' advancement, the attack of the undead camp temporarily stopped. But this kind of stop did not bring the slightest psychological comfort to the powerhouses of the Holy Light Empire, because they really had no means of continuing to resist. Even the 3 artifacts were consumed too much by the summoning of the Angel Knight Legion, and their power dropped sharply. End date? Doomsday? Just when the Holy Light Pope was preparing to fight to the death and defend his faith with his life, countless rune formations lit up on the outskirts of the city of Holy Light. Immediately after, a huge space crack was born faintly in the sky. The long-awaited reinforcement of the Holy Light Empire has finally arrived. His Majesty! Look! When the incomparably huge space crack was faintly formed, a sanctuary exclaimed. Castle in the sky. French Kingdom. The reinforcements have finally arrived. After muttering a few words to himself, the Holy Light Pope, who was almost silent, finally regained hope. Sky City, they're very familiar. They are no strangers to the countless runes on the outskirts of the City of Light. The flickering runes formed a huge rune formation. It is the role of this huge rune formation that forms that huge space crack in the sky. Because that huge rune formation is one of the highest technological achievements of the Farland Kingdom, the Space Pulling Formation. The Space Pulling Formation inscribed in the holy emblem used by the Holy Light Pope is based on this method. Changes are coming. The activation of the Space Traction Array represents the arrival of reinforcements from the Kingdom of Farland. With the flickering of those countless runes, the space crack in the high sky became clearer and clearer, as if the sky had been torn apart, opening a huge space crack spanning hundreds of miles. Through the cracks in space, you can see the darkness inside. Through the cracks in space, you can even see a majestic city crossing the void and coming across. High in the air, many sanctuary undead, including Sumu, looked at the huge space crack, 630 cm, and looked at the city in the sky that gradually came from the space crack. On Earth, countless players are even more fanatical. Watching a majestic city slowly emerge from a huge crack in space, this kind of scene, this kind of picture, is even more shocking than the sci-fi blockbuster they have seen in the real world. Castle in the sky. This is the trump card of the Kingdom of France. According to legend, this city was discovered in a world that had been destroyed when several sanctuary mages from the Kingdom of Farland joined forces to explore the void world thousands of years ago. At that time, the city in the sky had already crashed. After discovering the City of the Sky, when researching the City of the Sky and obtained countless gifts from another civilization, the Council of Truth was gradually established, and it became stronger and stronger. And the Kingdom of Flange was established. In the research and restoration of the Sky City by countless spellcasters over the past 1,000 years, this city that was originally floating in the sky has also returned to the sky again and has become a trump card of the Farland Kingdom. It is the Holy Light Empire. When this undead empire had not yet appeared, the huge empire that had always been on the opposite side of the Kingdom of Farron was all attracted by the power of the Sky City and did not dare to start the war lightly. At this time, the City of the Sky is coming. Through the defensive barrier shrouded outside the Sky City, Sumu could vaguely see the collapsed buildings in the Sky City, the restored mage towers, and the buildings representing alternative beliefs. Temple. Space shock. The enemy roared. Under the gaze of countless eyes, under the traction of the space traction circle, this majestic city finally crossed the space crack, spanned hundreds of millions of kilometers from the royal capital of the Kingdom of Farland, and appeared in the holy light. Beyond the holy mountain of the empire. Reinforcement. Arrive. Looking at the City of the Sky coming from the sky, the Holy Light Pope's heart is extremely tangled. With the strength of the Sky City, it is not a problem to block the Undead Master and the undead under his command. However, the defensive measures of the Holy Mountain were almost completely destroyed, and even the miracle disappeared. Even when the City of the Sky arrives, the mountain can't stop the attack of the Undead Master. He was thinking, is it to let these powerhouses of the Holy Light Empire retreat to the City of the Sky, preserve the living power of the Empire, and rebuild the Holy Mountain when the gods return? Only, as such, the destruction of the Holy Mountain is undoubtedly a devastating blow to the faith of the Holy Light Empire. Reinforcement. French Kingdom. Castle in the Sky? After the majestic city completely crossed the space gap and emerged from the sky, Sumu's brows slightly raised. Then, he stepped out in one step, traversing the distance of hundreds of kilometers between himself and the City of the Sky, and also passed through the incomparably tough defensive barrier of the City of the Sky, and appeared inside the City of the Sky. Defensive enchantment can prevent others, but can't prevent Sumu. As long as it is difficult to decipher the characteristic that his phase shift can cross the barrier, no matter how powerful the defensive barrier is, it cannot stop Sumu's leap. Only, just as Sumu's figure appeared within the defensive barrier of the Sky City, and the skeleton sword in his hand was about to be cut out, the countless runes depicted in the Sky City suddenly flashed. Moment. Sumu felt a huge repulsive force coming. By the time he reacted, his figure had already appeared from the inside of the City in the Sky, outside the defensive barrier of the City in the Sky. And at this time, the Holy Light Pope on the Holy Mountain also received a message from the sanctuary spellcasters of the Sky City. 1. The Sky City has a space-repelling circle opposite to the space-pulling circle, which is enough to prevent the Undead Master from entering the defensive barrier at will. 2. The defense capability of the Sky City is very strong. The attacks released by the mage towers that have long been repaired are comparable to the sanctuary. Even if the enemy breaks into the city, there is no need to worry, but the attack capability is not a threat for the time being. High-rank Sanctuary Undead. 3. The Council of Truth has never repaired the core of the city in the Sky the Space Furnace, which makes the city's attack, defense, suspension, and movement all rely on the space circle developed by the Council of Truth itself, as well as the energy and energy stored in the space circle. Magic Crystal. This energy supply method determines that the City in the Sky is bound to be unable to suspend and move for a long time. So, the Pope of Light must decide soon. With the City of the Sky as a deterrent, the strong men in the Holy Mountain and the City of Holy Light should be evacuated as soon as possible, or let the City of the Sky as an assistance to create the last chance for them to attack. After getting these news, Pope Holy Light instantly aged a lot. Turn out to be. The space furnace of the Sky City has never been repaired, and this mighty Sky City is also unable to withstand long-term battles. No wonder. In the past few hundred years, the Kingdom of Farland has only used Sky City as a trump card to deter other forces, but never sent Sky City to directly crush other forces. Originally, Pope Holy Light always thought that this was because those spellcasters of the Council of Truth were addicted to the pursuit of knowledge and truth and disdain to expand the sphere of influence of the Kingdom of Farland. Now it seems that it's not that they don't want to, but that they can't. Just like the angelic knights of the Holy Light Empire, they can only be used as a means of turning defeat into victory in the end, not as a means of conventional warfare. Finally, still have to make that choice. With a sigh, Holy Light Pope said solemnly, "Prepare to retreat." In the sky. After being repelled from the interior of the Sky City by the space-repelling circle, Sumu was a little stunned. He reluctantly tried several times. Whenever he turned on the phase shift and appeared inside the City of the Sky across the defensive barrier, the huge repulsive force would appear along with it, expelling him from the City of the Sky. Even if he took the undead under his command, he would be rejected at the same time. And defense. When Sumu pulled out a huge blade and slashed at the defensive barrier of the City in the Sky, The thin film-like barrier was not even a ripple. At least, judging from the attack methods Sumu showed, it was extremely difficult to break the defense of the Sky Castle. What he doesn't know is, at this time, the interior of the Sky City was already noisy. Inside the Sky City, an underground royal city full of elf style is the control center of this majestic city. Huge projection arrays appeared in this underground space, projecting all the situation around the Sky City into this underground space. In this underground space, there are thousands of spellcasters busy and running. Energy Furnace number 1 consumes 58%. It is expected to last for 15 minutes. Stand by, the energy furnace is fully prepared and ready to step in the energy pipeline. Magic, crystal reserves are fully prepared, ready to be filled with new energy. Defense mode has been turned on to the maximum. Attack mode has not been activated yet. Turning on the attack mode will increase the consumption of the energy furnace by 78%. It is not recommended to activate the attack mode now. Continue to contact the Holy Light Pope. After half an hour, the energy reserve of the Sky City will drop to the warning line. Within half an hour, the space traction array must be activated and returned to the flange. Countless pieces of information, countless instructions. Relying on the huge energy reserves and the countless magic circles built by the Kingdom of France in the past few hundred years, this city in the sky can become the ultimate trump card of the Kingdom of France. And this time, among the 7 sanctuaries of the Council of Truth, 4 are in charge of the operation of the city in the sky, leaving only 3 responsible for guarding the royal capital of the Kingdom of Farland, and responsible for the space traction magic circle at the other end. It's not that the Council of Truth doesn't want to join forces with the Holy Light Empire to completely kill Sumu, the undead master, here. Instead, the information passed on by the Holy Light Empire and the information collected by the Council of Truth itself, at this time, the Holy Light Empire has almost been crippled. Before the Dwarf Empire has come, in the Holy Light Empire has not been restored. When the city in the sky is not ready, rushing to war is tantamount to sending oneself to the enemy's butcher's knife. At least, give them another period of time, and they will have more time to prepare energy, so that the city in the sky can continue to fight for a longer time. Instead of the current situation, after receiving the help of the Holy Light Empire, he hurriedly opened the space to pull the magic circle, and hurriedly manipulated the unprepared Sky City to come. Soon, the Holy Light Pope made a decision. Temporarily abandon the Holy Mountain and withdraw from the living force of the Holy Light Empire. The miracle has disappeared, the divine power is no longer there, and even the Holy Light Domain is almost completely destroyed. The Holy Mountain at this time is really just a symbol. After the Pope's decision, the magician on the edge of the City of Sky also swayed a piece of attribute attack, repelled the undead of the sanctuary surrounding the City of the Sky, and assisted the Holy Light Empire to evacuate towards the City of the Sky. Of course, not just 5.5 is sanctuary and legendary. There are also many heroes, professionals, and civilians on the Holy Mountain and in the City of Holy Light. Just like Sumu's plane folding, Sky City also has a similar space coverage method, which can incorporate the existence of large swathes of the Holy Light Empire into this majestic city in an extremely fast way. In a sci-fi blockbuster, this method should be called Ray. Putting it here, this method is just an application of the space traction array. Simply relying on the City of the Sky, it is naturally difficult to transfer all the creatures in the Holy Mountain and the City of Holy Light. However, with Sumu's deliberate connivance, this speed is not slow. The goal of Sumu has always been the power of faith in the Holy Mountain. Since the Holy Light Empire voluntarily gave up the Holy Mountain so that he could easily plunder the power of faith in it, wouldn't it be nice? No matter the Holy Light 3 artifacts, the City of the Sky, or the mechanical god of war. As long as the power of belief is in hand, as long as the strength increases sharply again, the person who was originally difficult for him will also become easy. So, Sumu just cooperated with the acting. Do not let the creatures of the Holy Light Empire easily enter the Sky City, and they will not snipe too hard, making them suspicious. Slowly, time flies. More and more creatures have been taken into the City of the Sky, and this raid that spanned hundreds of millions of miles seems to be coming to an end. The war is indeed drawing to a close. When all the creatures in the Holy Mountain entered the City of the Sky, and most of the creatures in the City of Holy Light had already retreated, the army of undead gradually lost their opponents, and the war was naturally coming to an end. Of course, there was also a small accident in the middle. When the energy of the City in the Sky is close to the warning line, it is about to launch the space traction magic circle of the King's City, and the City of the Sky will jump from the City of the Holy Light to the King's City of the King. On the outskirts of the City of Holy Light, another smaller space traction magic circle also lit up. That space migration magic circle corresponds to the Dwarf Empire. To be precise, it corresponds to the trump card of the Dwarf Empire, the giant soldier, the mechanical god of war. Only, the traction circle has been lit. Space cracks have also appeared. When the supergiant war puppet over 300 meters is about to cross the space crack and appear outside the Holy Mountain when it joins with the Sky City and the Holy Light Empire. Accident happened. Thick smoke rose from the interior of the mechanical god of war, and a large number of runes flickered. Under the watchful eyes of Sumu and others, the mechanical god of war suddenly fell just before it was about to cross the space crack. Subsequently, the rift in space closes. After all, the mechanical god of war still failed to cross the space crack and appeared on this battlefield. Sumu was stunned. The caster in Sky City was speechless. Without this powerful reinforcement, the sanctuary spellcasters of the Council of Truth were naturally more reluctant to fight Sumu at this time. Subsequently, the space traction array was activated, and the huge space crack appeared again. In the case of unsuccessful attacks several times, the many undead in the sanctuary could only watch helplessly as the City of the Sky entered the space crack again and returned to the Kingdom of Flange from outside the Holy Mountain. By the way, he also brought the only remaining powerhouses and countless creatures from the Holy Light Empire to the Kingdom of Farland. 01. The war is over. The Holy Light Empire failed miserably. Not only did they lose the digital sanctuary, they also lost the biggest trump card of the Angel Knights, and they even lost the Holy Mountain, the place of their belief, and the City of Holy Light under the Holy Mountain. From this moment on, the Anreal continent entered a dark age. No one expected the Dark Camp's counterattack to be so violent, and no one knew whether they could persevere in the Dark Camp's follow-up counterattack before the gods awakened. Try to survive. It's the only thing they can do. The other side, Dwarf King City. When they failed to cross the space crack and fell from the sky, the Dwarf King and the Goblin King sat in a hill made of various parts and looked at each other. Green-skinned dwarf, are you secretly modifying the mechanical god of war's magic circle without telling me? After a long time, the Dwarf King thought of the reason why a mechanical god of war failed to cross the crack in space. This king just wants to change the energy furnace of the mechanical god of war into a space furnace, so that the mechanical god of war can last longer in one battle. The Goblin King blinked innocently and said, "A dwarf is a dwarf. Truth, the council can't parse the structural blueprint of the space furnace. What are you remodeling as a green-skinned dwarf?" The Dwarf King cursed. Gray-skinned dwarf. The fact that the Council of Truth cannot be resolved does not mean that this king cannot build it. Besides, the collapse of the mechanical god of war is not necessarily because the king has transformed the energy furnace. Maybe it is caused by you secretly modifying the weapon system of the mechanical god of war. Not to be outdone, the Goblin King will scold. Not only is he secretly transforming the mechanical god of war, but even the king of dwarves is secretly transforming the mechanical god of war. Only, the areas they transform are not the same. The Goblin King transforms the energy furnace according to his own ideas, and the Dwarf King transforms the weapon system according to his own ideas. The result is naturally that there are many bugs in the connection of the rune magic circle. When it is not started, these bugs cannot be seen. When the mechanical god of war was activated and was pulled across the space crack by the space traction array, it naturally caused the mechanical god of war to fall, as well as the scattered parts like hills. Of course, it's not a big deal. Their modifications are only temporary modifications, not solidified modifications directly inscribed in each part. As long as he restores the parts he modified indiscriminately, the mechanical god of war can return. Not even for a few days. Only, because of the secret transformation of the Dwarf King and the Goblin King, the mechanical god of war is destined to be unable to join this war. On the Holy Mountain, when the City of the Sky left and all the remaining creatures in the City of Holy Light were slaughtered by the undead army, Sumu came to this holy mountain. At this time, whether it is on this holy mountain or in the City of Holy Light at the foot of the mountain, there is no longer a single creature. Given the strength of the Dark Camp, perhaps, for a long time in the future, this holy mountain and this holy city will not have any creatures coming. The army of the undead and the more than 6 million undead camp players are all collecting loot in the City of Holy Light. The 6 sanctuaries, including Agnes and Augustine, appeared on the sacred mountain with many legendary undead, guarding the sacred mountain. Sumu's goal is the Holy Mountain. Although they don't know why their lords want to attack this sacred mountain that has only symbolic meaning, as long as their lords ask for them, they will do it without compromise. Now, the war is over. There is almost no possibility of someone suddenly appearing and attacking the undead camp. But when their lord entered the Holy Mountain, they still guarded this not tall mountain and did not let anyone disturb the next action of their lord. Appearing on the Holy Mountain, Sumu walked step by step towards the top of the Holy Mountain, the majestic pure white palace. Some of these palaces are the residences of the high-level personnel of the Holy Light Empire, some are the storage places for the books of the Holy Light Church, some are the transfer places of the Holy Light professionals, and some are the retreats of the ascetic monks. In the middle of these buildings is the temple of the God of Holy Light, the God of the Holy Light Empire. Along the way, Sumu's eyes swept around constantly. The undead have never really entered the Holy Mountain, and there are naturally no corpses on this Holy Mountain. Only, the hasty evacuation left traces of panic everywhere on the Holy Mountain. The previous battle also damaged most of the Holy Light circles all over the Holy Mountain. At this time, along the way, Sumu could still feel the power of the Holy Light contained in the broken Holy Light circle, and could also feel the peaceful and serene divine breath in the air. Only, this already broken Holy Light domain can no longer suppress his strength. Walking from the top of the Holy Mountain to the Holy Light Temple, Sumu's footsteps seemed to be slow and fast. A few breaths. He walked from the center of a building to the entrance of the Temple of Holy Light. Just standing here, he can feel a touch of coercion. Just standing here, he can feel the Holy Light Temple's rejection of him. God of Light. It is one of the most powerful beings among all the gods. Past life. When the gods wake up, when reality is destroyed, the God of Light is one of the biggest behind the scenes. The pure white holy light ripped apart the sky. Endless light descends on the earth. When one god after another appears, when a group of angels descend, when the God of Holy Light hidden behind the scenes sets the goal of conquest at the real world. A real world where the sanctuary has never been born. How? Withstand? Besides, when that moment came, many other gods broke through the barrier between the game world and the real world and came to the real world, intending to take a share. The connection between the game world and the real world is a necessity. When the game, Second World, was launched, this result was inevitable. But if it wasn't for the Holy Light's personal action, with its terrifying power that is the most divine, it would directly tear open the barrier between the game world and the real world. The advent of the game world is far more than 10 years short. Perhaps, if the God of Holy Light in the previous life did not immediately aim at the real world and let the game process continue to develop, the players in the real world would gradually be born with sanctuary and even demigod-level existences. By that time, in the face of the gods, the real world is not without the slightest resistance. Of course, this is in the case that the god of light did not personally take action. If that existence were to take action personally, let alone a demigod, it would be the end of the true gods who could not escape their fall when they were targeted. God of light. Holy light. Just one of the priesthoods. Holy light. Bright. Purify. Redemption. Etc. It's all within his ministry. It is precisely because of these many priesthoods, with countless believers, and under the support of countless continuous power of faith, that the God of Holy Light will become one of the most powerful beings among the gods. And this time, Sumu stood before such a temple of existence. Destroying a god's temple and stealing a god's belief is destined to be taken by the gods. Of course, because of the existence of their eroded talent, the gods whose power of belief has been stolen may not know that Sumu did all this. After all, the evil god Immortal King, who never fell into a deep sleep, has never been discovered. Sumu stole his power of faith. Sleeping gods are even less likely to discover. But when the gods woke up from their slumber, it was easy to know that Sumu brought the undead army to destroy the Holy Mountain, destroy the temple, and even destroy the Holy Light Empire. For this, Sumu did not take it to heart. He is undead. Or the undead master. This is the existence that must be destroyed in the doctrine of the God of Light. Even without the hatred of his previous life, even without his introduction to attacking the Holy Light Empire and stealing the power of faith, he is still the God of Holy Light and the target to be destroyed by the entire Holy Light camp. That being the case, why should he be afraid of being targeted by a god? With a touch of excitement and a touch of happiness, Sumu stepped into the Holy Light Temple. Just like in the Temple of the God of Forging, that one contains a shadow of the God of Holy Light, because the coercion brought by the power of countless beliefs is constantly radiating from the statue. For Sumu, this radiated coercion is the natural enemy. Every time he took a step forward, he seemed to hear countless people reading his sins in his ears, and he seemed to hear a grand will coming, staring at him. Thick smoke rose from him. That is the manifestation of the breath of death and the breath of darkness being purified. Before getting close to the statue of the God of Light, a trace of cracks appeared on Sumu's body, and his body and armor that were almost at the quality of a semi-artifact were almost unbearable radiated from the statue of the God of Light. Coercion. But Sumu didn't step back. He continuously absorbs the energy in the dimension plane and turns it into a pure breath of death and darkness to fight against the purification from the holy light. Wow! Armor shattered. Sumu's footsteps did not stop. Wow! Cracks appear. Sumu's footsteps still did not stop. When the armor on his body was completely shattered, and there were even terrifying cracks on his body, the undead who blasphemed the gods finally appeared next to the statue of the God of Light. Subsequently, a hand wrapped in unknown energy, overlaid on the statue of the God of Light. Unknown energy flowed in and began to gradually erode this blurred-faced idol. Same as the previous few times. Once the unknown energies began to erode the idols and began to plunder the power of faith and the projection of the gods in the idols, that mysterious space appeared in Sumu's vision. But this time is a little different. In the center of the space is a blurry female figure shrouded in a piece of holy light. Around this female figure, surrounded by many illusory human figures, these human figures kneeled on the ground reverently and projected worship, praise, and prayers to the gods of the female figure. Those illusory human figures are not just moving. When the unknown energy turned into a shadow and began to erode the space, Sumu clearly felt that there were countless small prayers resounding in this space. That was the prayer of those phantoms. With the prayers of these illusory humanoids, it seems that the erosion of shadows on this space has become much slower. Of course, just slow. The projection of the God of Holy Light in the center of the space did not respond to the erosion energy. Like other evil gods, demigods and true gods, even if their rank and strength far exceed Sumu, they are still unable to prevent the erosion of unknown energy. What? What about the true god? What about the king of god? Sneer. Sumu put his mind into the unknown control of energy and controlled the shadow to quickly erode the space. Time flies. When the night passed and the light shone on the earth again, Sumu in the Temple of Holy Light opened his eyes. At this time, he could no longer contain the ecstasy in his heart. The God of Light is indeed one of the most powerful gods. The Holy Light Empire is indeed one of the most powerful forces in the Unreal continent. With the largest number of citizens and the only belief in the God of Light, the power of faith in the statue of the God of Light in this temple is far beyond Sumu's imagination. 1,000,000 points. This is the free points that Sumu has gained in this plunder of the power of faith. 1,000,000 points. You must know that even in the Temple of the God of Forging in the Dwarf Empire, he only gained 50,000 free points. There are two reasons for this 20-fold difference. First, the Holy Light Empire has a larger population and a higher level of belief, which can provide the God of Holy Light with more power of faith. When the God of Holy Light fell into a deep sleep, the power of faith condensed in the statue was even more. Second, in the statue of the God of Light, the upper limit of the power of belief is more. It may be because the Holy Mountain was once the place where miracles came, which made the temple contain more power of faith, or it may be other reason. In short, after this thrilling loot, the number of free points that Sumu possesses has reached an unprecedented 1,000,000 mark. It has reached as many as 1.083 million points. This quantity, not to mention upgrading one's own dimension plane from the medium plane to the large plane, even if the dimension plane is upgraded to the full level of the large plane, it is more than enough. Get rich overnight. This is the real get rich quick. After a long time, Sumu's mood gradually calmed down. According to the dimensional plane, after the medium plane is promoted to the large plane, each promotion requires 100,000 free points to calculate, and his current free points are enough to upgrade his dimensional plane to the full level of the large plane. Further up is the world. And once one's own dimension plane has evolved to the level of the world, it means that he has evolved into a real dimension demon. In terms of personality, dimension demons are comparable to real gods. Only, the last promotion, that is, the promotion from a large plane to the world, is very likely to require a full 1,000,000 free points. That is to say, to truly evolve into a dimensional demon god, Sumu still needs to collect another 1,000,000 free points. But he wasn't very worried about this. Without him, the Holy Light Empire is big enough, there are enough cities in the empire, and there are enough believers of the God of Light in those cities. Holy Mountain. Just the holy land of the Holy Light Empire. The Holy Light Temple above the Holy Mountain is only the largest and highest standard Holy Light Temple in the Holy Light Empire. In those other cities, there are other Holy Light Temples. Perhaps the power of faith contained in the idols of these temples is not much. Perhaps the upper limit of the power of faith that the idols of these temples can gather is not high. But temples, statues collected in the past. Even if there are only 10,000 free points in a statue, Sumu can collect the remaining 1,000,000 free points in a short period of time. The statue in the Holy Mountain. To be exact, the 1,000,000 free points contained in the statue is a key. As long as these 1,000,000 free points are converted into his own strength, Sumu's strength will skyrocket again. At the same time, it is the alliance of the three major forces, and he also has enough strength to push and crush. In this way, no one can stop him from collecting subsequent free points. At best, just take a little more time. In addition, this time, Sumu did not acquire the skills to erode the God of Holy Light. If you think about it, you can see that even if the God of Holy Light and the God of Forging hide their gifts in the gods, it is not Sumu. The undead master who is hostile to the Holy Light can learn it. But After plundering the source of the true God contained in the projection of the God of Light, his four-dimensional attributes skyrocketed again. It has skyrocketed by as much as 100,000 points. All four-dimensional attributes have skyrocketed by 100,000 points, which is equivalent to his level being increased by 10 levels again. Of course, compared to the 1 million free points, the improvement of the four-dimensional attributes is not so important. The power of faith was plundered, and the idols were desecrated. When Sumu walked outside this magnificent temple, the statue of the God of Light began to shatter, and the temple, which symbolized the highest belief of the Holy Light Empire, also began to collapse. Corroding the idol of the God of Light, Sumu's body was nearly broken. But when all this was completed, when he walked outside the temple, a steady stream of death and darkness aura came from the dimension plane, and his body was quickly repairing. By the time Sumu rose to the sky and returned to the top of the holy mountain, his body and skeleton armor were almost repaired. Lord, when Sumu returned, a group of high-level undead hurriedly saluted. Rectify the undead army. Go to the second-largest city of the Holy Light Empire in an hour. He waved his hand, indicating a waiver. After explaining the next attack target, Sumu thought and disappeared in place. At this time, Sumu has returned to his own dimension. Open the attribute panel and look at the number of free points he has now. Sumu added 100,000 points to the level behind the dimension plane without hesitation, and added his dimension plane to the medium plane, level 10. Promoted to large plane, level 1. The dimension plane is promoted again. The torrent of energy keeps pouring in. Sumu also gained the fourth ability brought by his own dimension plane, plane projection. The so-called plane projection is to condense a projection with one's own power and throw it into other spaces or worlds. This plane projection has a little origin of Sumu. When it is just a projection, it is just like the projection contained in the statues of the demigods, evil gods, and true gods. But, when necessary, Sumu's own will can also descend on his own projection and control his own projection to fight. Not the kind of clone with autonomous will. Of course, the role of plane projection is not only these. Sumu can store his own plane projection in the statue, and those demigods, evil gods, and true gods generally collect the power of faith. He can also turn his own projection into a little source, and store it in Agnes, Corolla, etc. among the souls of high-level undead. When needed, they can use their own strength to fight against the enemy, and at the same time, Sumu can also let his will come down in a single thought and use the body of his subordinates or believers to observe a certain world or to fight against the enemy. That is to say, there is no need for those so-called secret techniques. When a dimensional demon develops his dimensional plane to the level of a large plane, he will naturally be able to master the ability to collect beliefs. In addition, if Sumu wishes, he can also use his own plane projection as an energy avatar. But this usage consumes more energy, and it must be Sumu's own will to come. Once his will leaves and returns to the body, the plane projection used as an energy incarnation loses its support, and it will be dispersed as pure energy and turned into nothing. All in all, planar projection has many uses. At the same time, after raising his own dimension plane to a large-scale plane of level 1, Sumu confirmed that the first Archon also stayed at this level. It's just that I don't know what level his dimension plane, Wang Hao, is. From start to finish, Sumu, not even those consuls of the Undead Empire, have never seen the real face of the first consul. The human figure outlined by the ring of faint blue flames is nothing but the incarnation of the energy condensed by the first consul's plane projection. As a result, Sumu's fear of the first consul came back to his heart. The energy incarnation condensed by a plane projection is enough to surpass the entire Anreal continent. Then, how powerful should this first consul's body, which has never been seen, be so powerful? He had always thought that his strength had surpassed that of the first consul, just because he had never seen the true face of the first consul. The water on the plane of death is unfathomable. He did not enter the plane of death recklessly before, which was a correct decision. Not just the past. In the future, Sumu does not intend to enter the plane of death until he truly develops his own dimension plane to the level of world and possesses a mighty power comparable to that of a god. The promotion of the dimension plane has already begun. The next promotion can only be carried out after the infusion of the energy torrent ends and the turbulence in the space subsides. So after adding points, Sumu simply returned to the Unreal continent, continued to start his journey, and continued to collect free points. Prepare for that promotion when the large plane moves towards the world. Mind a move. Sumu returned to the sky above the holy mountain in the Unreal continent from his own dimension plane. Just after returning, Sumu's brows furrowed deeply. The world's rejection of him is getting stronger and stronger. When he just embarked on the road of the dimensional demon god, Sumu already felt this rejection of him by the world. With the promotion of the dimension plane, this exclusion is getting stronger and stronger. When the dimension plane was promoted from a medium plane to a large plane, the world's rejection of him suddenly increased tenfold. So that, after returning to the Unreal continent, Sumu had to use 1/10 of his strength to fight against this exclusion at all times to ensure that he could stay in this world. Is this the reason why the first console came in the form of plane projection? The exclusion of the world? Sumu was silent. According to the strength of the world's rejection of him, I am afraid that when he raises his dimension plane to the full level of the large plane, he will have to use all his power to fight against the world's rejection. If he promotes his dimensional plane to the world level, I am afraid just entering the world is a difficult thing to accomplish. After all, the dimensional demon god is the master of the dimensional world, which is equivalent to the dimensional world itself. How can one world enter another world? Unless the world is broken and incomplete. Actually, not only the dimension demon gods, but any existence that has been enshrined as gods, it is difficult for them to enter the world. The world will instinctively reject these existences that have a huge impact and destruction on the world just by their existence. Want to enter? Can, with absolute strength, tear open the crystal wall of the world outside the world, and fight against the laws and rules of the entire world, and you will naturally be able to enter the world. But in this way, two situations arise. No -630, the gods who want to enter the world are strong enough not only to tear apart the crystal wall of the world, but also to resist the laws and rules of the entire world, and withstand the instinctive counterattack of the world. Nature can enter the world and stay in it. However, this is not entering the world, but destroying the world. Second, the gods who want to enter the world are not strong enough. Even if they tear apart the crystal wall of the world and enter the interior of the world, it is difficult to resist the continuous counterattack from the world and eventually fall under the confrontation of various laws and rules. So, basically, there is no situation where a deity breaks into a primary material world. Is the world exclusion? Feeling the rejection from the world of Unreal, Sumu frowned slightly. Thus, he can't continue to upgrade the level of the dimensional plane immediately after the promotion of the dimensional plane is completed, but to balance the speed of the dimensional plane's promotion and the speed of obtaining free points. It is best to wait until you have obtained enough free points to raise the dimension plane to the world level, and then raise your dimension plane level to the full level of the large plane. Immediately afterwards, it was promoted to world. In this way, before the last promotion, he can still maintain a certain combat power, which will not cause heavy losses to his seat due to the joint attack of the three major forces, and can also compress the time required for the promotion of the dimension plane to the extreme. It will not appear that his own dimension plane has just been promoted, and the gods will wake up from their slumber, causing them to be unprepared for the next battle. So, keep collecting free points. Subsequently, Sumu ordered the army to start broadcasting and rush towards the second largest city in the Holy Light Empire. The battle on the Holy Mountain has already spread throughout the entire Holy Light Empire through various contact formations and has also spread to the other two major forces. Out of fear of the terrifying combat power displayed by the Undead Master, in the next time, the three major forces did not appear to encircle and suppress Sumu again, but were secretly preparing something. Period. Many powerhouses and intelligence personnel risked their lives to approach the undead army, constantly detecting the direction and attack route of the undead army. So, when Sumu arrived at the second largest city of the Holy Empire with his high-level undead and undead army, except for a very small number of fanatics who were still guarding in the Holy Light Temple, other Holy Light professionals, heroes and residents have long since fled the city. The next step is simple. Rush into the city, kill all the mad believers left behind, erode the statue of the God of Light, and plunder the power of faith in the statue. In this shrine, Sumu once again got 100,000 free points. This means that his strategy is completely feasible. The second harvest is complete. Before leaving the city and heading to the third city, Sumu did not forget to let the undead army under his command raged in the city. Not to mention the complete destruction of the city, it also makes the city uninhabitable for a short period of time. Quite in line with the situation after the undead natural disaster ravaged. Subsequently, the third city, the fourth city, the fifth city. Cities are harvested in the past. One after another statues eroded the past. The free points accumulated on Sumu's attribute panel are getting more and more, and the level of his dimension plane is getting higher and higher. During this process, the three major forces have never attacked. Even the destruction of a city and a city in Sumu in the past, the Holy Light Empire just kept sending strong men and intelligence personnel to spy on the marching route and next target of the undead army, and inform the residents of that city in advance to flee. At this point, the Holy Light Empire is far inferior to the former Caesar Empire. The courage of the Holy Light Pope is far less than that of the former Caesar 7. To know. At that time, when Sumu invaded the Caesar Empire, Caesar 7 would rather bear the huge losses of the empire, and also sent a large number of strong people to evacuate the residents of the cities, leaving Sumu completely empty city. What about the Holy Light Empire? Except for the powerhouses and intelligence personnel who spy on the intelligence, the only thing they do is to inform, not to assist. Let the residents of the cities listed as the target of the attack move on their own. From this point of view, the courage of a ruler has little to do with his rank and rank. At the same time, after the first 1,000-mile raid, in the following time, Sumu, the Undead Master and his sanctuary Undead and Undead Army, attacked cities by way of long-distance travel. Thus, the leaders of the three major forces made a conclusion. For the first 1,000-mile raid, the Empire of the Undead probably used some kind of powerful one-time props, so in such a short period of time, it crossed a distance of hundreds of millions of miles and appeared on the Holy Mountain from the Western Fortress. Next, if that kind of props are damaged, the army of undead can only use conventional methods to cross the distance between cities, and the cities will attack in the past. When they understood this, they felt at ease. The counterattack of the Dark Camp, the closer the gods wake up, the more violent it will be. Their goal from beginning to end is to delay time and wait for the gods to wake up, not to risk the destruction of the Dark Camp before the gods wake up. As such, the slow-marching method of the Undead Empire is actually procrastinating for them. Except for the Holy Light Empire, the other two major forces did not lose much. Even the Holy Light Empire. With advance notice to the inhabitants of the relocation, only cities and a small number of fanatics were lost. Knowing the dark counterattack, this kind of loss is completely within their acceptable range. As for temples and statues, just as they destroyed the Undead Empire, they would definitely destroy the temples and idols built by the Undead Empire for the evil gods, so the Dark Camp did the same to the Holy Light Camp. The three major forces will never doubt the secrets of the temples and statues destroyed by the Undead Army, let alone know Those temples and statues are the real purpose of the undead army's attack again and again. Time flies. Slowly, the accumulation of the three major forces is getting deeper and deeper. The mechanical god of war has been optimized again, and the mobility and flexibility have been greatly enhanced. The city of the sky is filled with energy, enough to support a battle for a long time, even the Holy Light Empire. All right. After losing their base camp, the only thing the Holy Light Empire's sanctuaries did during this period was to recover and refill the energy in the Holy Light's three artifacts. Even so, no one will despise the Holy Light Empire. On the one hand, there are still several sanctuaries in the Holy Light Empire, and the power of the Holy Light they master is also the most lethal power to the Undead Empire. On the other hand, the Holy Light Pope with the three artifacts may not be strong enough to face the terrifying Undead Master, but he is still one of the most powerful members in the entire Anreal continent. The three major forces are waiting for the arrival of the most brutal final round of dark counterattacks. Sumu is also waiting for the promotion of the Dimension Plane and waiting to harvest the last batch of free points. Slowly, several months have passed. In the past few months, the Undead Army has completely destroyed hundreds of cities in the Holy Light Empire, and also destroyed hundreds of temples and statues in these cities. And after eroding the idols in these temples, Sumu finally has enough free points to raise his dimension plane from the full level of the large plane to the level of the world. Subsequently, when the level of the dimension plane was raised from level 8 to level 9 and gradually stabilized, Sumu unfolded the power of space and brought all the undead and undead army under his sanctuary into the dimension space. Then, with the space beacon located in the Undead Empire, it directly appeared in the City of Death. Return. The war that lasted for half a year is over. The more than 6 million undead camp players can finally take a good rest and collect the rewards and experience points they have obtained in this long war. Sumu also prepares for his last two promotions. Once, it is to raise the dimension plane from the 9th level of the large plane to the 10th level of the large plane. Another time, it is to promote the dimension plane from the 10th level of the large plane to the world. Let Sumu, the master of the dimension plane, become the real dimension demon. Quietly, the war is temporarily over. The last round of counterattack of the Dark Camp predicted by the three major forces has not come. Or, not yet. When the strong men sent by the Holy Light Empire appeared again as intelligence personnel, intending to explore the next marching route and attack target of the Undead Army, they were shocked to find that the Undead Army had disappeared. On the way to a certain city, the traces left by the march of the army of tens of millions of undead were suddenly interrupted. Only the thick aura of death and darkness was left and gradually dissipated in the air. City of the Dead. There are still 3 years before the gods wake up. After harvesting experience points once again and raising his level from 87 to 90, which is the full level of the sanctuary level, Sumu is an Agnes, Augustine, Nefarian, Rhoda Monroe, and Banshee. The King, the Mirror of Nightmare, and the souls of the 7 sanctuaries of Argus all left a trace of their own plane projections. With the help of this plane projection, these 7 sanctuary undead can borrow their own power at any time. In this way, even if he is not there, even if the 3 major forces feel wrong and join forces to attack, the Undead Empire will not have the power to fight back. Furthermore, there is still a realm teleportation formation within the Undead Empire, and the Undead Empire also has the retreat route of Anduin continent. Even if Sumu has not appeared for an extremely long period of time, the Undead Empire is not in danger of being destroyed. Of course, at this time, the foundation of the Empire, that is, the belief in the Dark Titan by the countless intelligent creatures living in the Undead Empire, was no longer within Sumu's consideration. After completing the final step, he is the real dimensional demon god, and he even surpasses the evil gods like the Dark Titan in terms of personality. How could he still be afraid of the threat posed by an evil god who is not even a true god? So, in the Empire of the Undead, after having no worries under his command, Sumu decisively returned to his dimensional plane from the City of Death and started his last 2 promotions on the dimensional plane. In the Dimension Plane, Sumu opened his own attribute panel. 1.283 million. This is the number of free points he has now. It is enough to raise his dimension plane from the 9th level of the large plane to the full level, and to the level of the world, and there are still remaining. Stand in the center of this dimensional plane that belongs to you. Sumu let out a long breath and added 100,000 free points to the level of the dimension plane. Take time. Earth shakes. The torrent of energy continuously pours out from the void and integrates into this plane, making the area and energy level of this plane continue to improve. On his properties panel, the level of the dimension plane has also been quietly raised from the 9th level of the large plane to the 10th level of the large plane. This time, Sumu did not leave the dimension plane, but in this dimension plane, quietly experienced the feeling of this plane opening up and the world expanding. Perhaps, experiencing this feeling has no direct effect on Sumu's combat power improvement, but the use of various energies and the use of various skills has many benefits. In his own dimension plane, he still cannot feel the passage of time. With Sumu's realization, the torrent of energy that was constantly pouring out of the void gradually subsided and merged into this plane, prompting the continuous expansion of the area and energy level of this dimensional plane. The constantly shaking space gradually calmed down, making this plane calm down again. Maybe a few days? Or maybe a few months. After the aftermath of the promotion from the 9th level of the large plane to the 10th level of the large plane gradually recovered, Sumu did not hesitate to put a full 1 million free points into the level of the dimensional plane. 1 million points. Even if a god wants to collect 1 million points of faith, it will probably take a long time. And now, this is equivalent to 1 million free points of faith. Was thrown into the promotion of the dimension plane by Sumu without hesitation. Then, the last promotion has begun. From the plane to the world. From the undead in the sanctuary to the real dimension demon. When the full 1 million free points were consumed, the level of his own dimension plane on Sumu's attribute panel finally changed from a large plane, level 10, to a small world, level 1. The plane crystal wall of the dimension plane shattered. Rest assured. Not a promotion failure. There is no possibility of failure to promote the dimension plane with free points. When the plane crystal wall that sheltered the dimension plane shattered, the endless energy torrent in the void ocean also poured into this dimension plane like a tsunami. Only, when crossing a certain barrier, even the space can be easily torn apart. This torrent of void energy that even the real gods dare not face easily, but suddenly becomes docile. The torrent of void energy poured directly into it replaced the original torrent of energy. Under the influx of this endless energy, the dimension plane expands again. Earth expands. All things evolve. Complete laws and rules began to be born in this dimensional plane. Even Sumu in the high sky felt that time began to pass in his own dimension plane. This is Sumu's last promotion before becoming a demon god. It is also the most violent promotion. At this moment, each standing in the sky, sheltered by some unknown force. Sumu saw with his own eyes how his dimensional plane evolved into a dimensional world step by step. With the endless torrent of void energy pouring in, the source of darkness originally used by Sumu as the energy core of the dimensional plane has completely evolved into an artifact and is evolving in a direction that he cannot understand. At this time, the source of darkness is no longer a piece of equipment, and it is not just an artifact, but is accompanied by the entire plane moving towards the level of the world, from a piece of equipment, a prop, an artifact, towards the world. The direction of the heart is pulling, together with. The trace of the soul source that Sumu penetrated into the source of darkness has also become the master of everything, all laws and rules in this world. Plane in promotion. Sumu is also being promoted. This kind of promotion is not the promotion of strength, but the promotion of character. Above the earth, the plate moves. Is it true that there are huge volcanoes born along with this moving plate, spewing out endless hot magma, forming pillars of fire that go straight to the sky? The lava wine fell and flowed freely. The world that was originally dead has also turned into a fiery red, as if it is the legendary Hell of Flames. Migrate again and again. Eruption again and again. When the magma that spreads all over the world gradually cools down, dark clouds that cover tens of thousands of kilometers are born. Downpour fell. At the same time as the magma world was completely cooled down, the endless rainwater also migrated along the continent, and the terrain formed after the volcanic eruption converged, forming rivers, lakes, and oceans. During this process, the wind howled, lightning and thunder. Whether it is the earth, volcanoes, magma, dark clouds, heavy rain, strong winds, or lightning, the appearance of all these celestial phenomena represents that in this plane that is advancing towards the world, all the laws and rules are being perfected. If it is a naturally born world, the time for such laws and rules to gradually improve will be extremely long. Maybe tens of thousands of years, or maybe hundreds of thousands of years. It takes hundreds of thousands or millions of years for a world to evolve from its birth to the point where it evolves enough to produce living beings. And now, catalyzed by free points, supported by that endless torrent of void energy, this process has been shortened a billion times. Slowly, heaven and earth are clear. Slowly, the mountains and rivers are stable. In just a few months, this dimensional plane owned by Sumu has completed the promotion from the large plane, level 10, world to the level, and completed the initial evolution of the world. Subsequently, a crystal wall reappeared outside the world. Still crystal clear, still clear. Just like the former plane crystal wall, the world crystal wall generated after the dimension plane was promoted to the dimension world not only can resist the erosion of the void energy torrent like the plane crystal wall, but also continuously absorb the power of the void energy torrent to strengthen itself, is also harder, more stable, and indestructible than the crystal wall of the plane. 0. Ask for flowers. At the same time, starting from the level of the world, the area within the dimensional world has become truly vast. Perhaps, for the Master Sumu, his dimensional world still has boundaries. But for the creatures and undead who live in this world, or enter this world is truly vast, unless promoted to the gods. Otherwise, even if they spend thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, they can't reach the edge of the world and can't touch the crystal wall of the world. This is the mystery of the world. The creatures of a world cannot touch the boundaries of the world. Only when their personalities are elevated and jump out of this world can they get rid of the mystery of the world and see the boundaries of a world. World Crystal Wall was born. World evolution ends. By this time, Sumu's last promotion can be said to be over. From this moment on, the dimension plane he owns is officially promoted to the dimension world. From this moment on, his identity is also officially promoted from a sanctuary undead to a dimension demon. A true one. The one who rivals the true god in personality. The dimensional demon god. Of course, there is still a certain difference between Sumu and true god at this time. Within his own dimensional world, Sumu is the master, the way of heaven, and the world itself. With a single thought, he can mobilize the energy, laws, and rules in the entire dimensional world. Even if a true god breaks into his own dimension plane, Sumu can mobilize the power of the world to suppress it. But outside of its own dimensional world, his strength is his own strength. At most, plus the increase in combat power brought to him by the dimension world and various abilities that are exclusive to the dimension demon god. From this point of view, Sumu seems to be losing money? Do not. Of course not. The existence of the dimensional world alone can allow him to return to his own world at any time when he encounters danger, and he is invincible, If he can drag the enemy into his own world, he can directly use his own authority, suppress the enemy, and even bombard them. The foundation of the God of faith is the power of faith. Even if they leave their own kingdom of God, they are still strong, but without the power of faith, a true God will fall by himself without the need for other gods to attack. The power of faith is the biggest flaw of a true God. Even a true God is promoted from the lower God to the middle God is promoted to the upper God, etc. It also needs enough power of faith and enough believers. If you are not careful, you will be involved in a battle of gods. If you are not careful, you will fall. Leaving one's own kingdom of God and still maintaining one's own strength is the advantage of believing in God. The foundation of everything is the power of belief. If one loses believers and the power of belief, it will be greatly weakened, or even fall. Which is the greatest belief in God? Defects. What about dimension demons? He is relatively weak. Leaving his own dimension world, he can only rely on his own strength and the increase in combat power brought by the dimension world, which is its biggest disadvantage. Advantage. It does not need the power of belief. Just by maintaining its own existence, it will continue to grow. It is omnipotent in its own dimension world and dominates all things. Even if the gods of the same realm break in, they can be suppressed at will. All in all, the God of faith and the dimensional demon god are two completely different paths. The two paths have advantages and disadvantages to each other. But in general, the road of dimension demon god is more suitable for Sumu. The promotion of the world has been completed. The personal leap has also ended. Scene. This time, the ultimate evolution from the sanctuary to the demon god is over? Of course not. He has one last step left. That is, to determine the origin of one's own dimensional world. The normal world naturally has no origin. All things, all kinds of rules, all kinds of laws, the power of all kinds of attributes, are all covered in one world. Even the origin is the origin of the world itself. The dimensional world is different. In essence, a dimensional world of a dimensional demon god is equivalent to the kingdom of God. Belief in gods has a priesthood and also has a divine power corresponding to the priesthood. The kingdom of the dimensional demon gods, that is, their dimensional world, is naturally the same. Determining a kind of power as the source power of one's own dimension world is the last step in the advancement of the dimension demon. The power of the source. Sumu fell into deep thought when he heard the system beep in his mind. Determine the power of the source. Use the power of the source. This is the ability brought to the dimension demon after the dimension plane is promoted to the world. It is equivalent to the previous promotions again and again, and the ability of the dimension plane to increase the combat power, plane projection, and other abilities brought to the dimension demon god is average. Only, the determination of the power of the source is not an arbitrary determination. It must be the power that Sumu himself has mastered. For example, Sumu has mastered the power of fear. He can use the power of fear as the source power of his own dimension world and transform his world into a world of fear full of the power of fear. For example, with the advancement of Agnes, Sumu has also mastered the power of death, and he can also use the power of death as the source of his dimensional world, transforming his world into a world of death. Another example, he can use his remaining hundreds of thousands of free points to upgrade the ice-based skills he has mastered to the level of the original skills 01 times, take the power of frost as the source of his dimensional world, and transform his world into a frost world, etc. It can be said, when a dimensional devil promotes his dimensional plane to a dimensional world, it is the most important thing to determine the origin of his dimensional world. This is related to the subsequent advancement of the dimensional demon god and the subsequent growth of the dimensional world. Its importance. It is no less than the existence of a god who is about to be enthroned, confirming his own priesthood. The power of fear. The power of death. These two source powers are powers that Sumu has mastered and can become the source powers of his dimensional world at any time. Frost power. Shadow power. Shadow power. The power of corruption. These are skills or powers that Sumu can improve through free points, evolve it into his own source power, and then become the source power of his own dimension world. How to choose? Sumu was confused. No matter what kind of power he chooses, even the power of death that he values most will not satisfy him. Pity. At the beginning of the world, the first time into the devil, Sumu can only choose one kind of power as the source of his own dimension world. If he can choose a variety of powers, he is not a dimension demon, but an existence above demons and gods. Eyes slightly closed. Don't let your mind get distracted by the property panel. All kinds of power, all kinds of information, one skill flashed through his mind. What kind of power is Sumu thinking about is his most powerful power? What kind of power is the most potential power? From being reborn as a fragile skeleton to growing into a dimensional demon, his many skills have brought him a huge boost. Phase shift can be regarded as the power of space or the power of shadow. The existence of this skill has raised his survivability to the limit. Even in the face of a more powerful existence than himself, he can also escape calmly without falling into danger. Death cutting can be regarded as the power of death. The existence of this main battle skill has allowed Sumu to defeat existences higher than himself countless times. Even now, death cutting is still one of his strongest main battle skills. Ice Age can be seen as the power of frost. As one of Sumu's only two world skills, with the support of a steady stream of energy, this skill is even enough to freeze a world. Turn a main material world into a world of ice and snow. When natural disasters come, it can be regarded as the power of undead. As one of the most frequently used skills in the later stage, this skill is enough for him to summon hundreds of millions of undead with a wave of his hand, and devour the entire world with a steady stream of undead natural disasters. All in all, dozens of skills, dozens of powers. As long as it can be originalized, as long as it can be evolved by free points, Sumu can choose any kind of energy as the source power of his dimensional world. He can also select the corresponding skills from his undead skill library with thousands of skills, evolve them, and use them as the source power of his dimensional world. The dimension demon god who can evolve the dimension plane into the dimension world may exist. But like Sumu, when determining the origin of his dimensional world, there are probably dozens and hundreds of choices that have never been seen before, right? Slowly. Memory playback. Slowly. Clear mind. Suddenly, Sumu laughed. He laughed at himself for being a demon. From being reborn as a fragile skeleton to growing into a dimensional demon god that is comparable to the true god, there has always been a kind of power throughout his experience in the past few years. It is also the existence of that kind of power that he can gradually grow up and grow into a dimensional demon god at a speed beyond the imagination of all existences. Talent. Erosion, Heaven Domain. Didn't this unique mysterious talent that belonged to him officially grow to be the biggest reliance now? Whether it is to erode the enemy's bones to obtain four-dimensional attributes, or to erode the enemy's soul and enslave it, or after killing the enemy, you can obtain free points to improve your skills and evolve your skills. It even eroded the idols of demigods, evil gods and true gods in the later period, plundering their origins and plundering the power of their beliefs. The root of all this. Isn't it all brought about by your own talent? Even Augustine knew how to make good use of his talent, develop his talent into his own professional template, and eventually become his ultimate power. Sumu, the newly advanced dimensional demon god, was lost in the countless powers and skills he mastered. Choose other powers, whether it is the power of death, the power of fear, or the power of frost, the power of shadow. All of this is nothing but interference. Erosion. Own talent. The only erosive force. It is Sumu's strongest and most suitable source of power for him. Insightful. At this moment, Sumu is no longer confused, let alone hesitant. He decisively chose the power of erosion represented by the erosion, talent as the only source of power in his dimensional world. With his choice. Next moment. The dimensional world that has just been perfected begins to undergo drastic changes again. The sky became gloomy and the earth became cold. Even the vitality and various energy breaths that permeated the air turned into a faint black mist-like power that originated from Sumu and lived alone in Sumu. This change seems to be slow but fast. Almost a few minutes after Sumu's mind was certain, the change was complete. At the same time, an inexplicable message emerged from his mind. Sumu. This is his name. Regardless of his past life or this life, he has always used his name. Even in the eyes of the Aborigines in the game world and the players in the game world, he has always appeared in everyone's sight with this term. But, with the appearance of that inexplicable message, he came up with another name. Real name. Or rather, the name of God. That inexplicable piece of information is precisely after Sumu became a real dimensional demon god and determined the source of his own dimensional world, the source of all existence in the game world, that is. Even the most powerful gods are unknowable. The source of the law, the only real name that was born in Sumu, and only Sumu can know. Inless Endless, Abris. The long real name is expressed with the most basic information that constitutes the world. The information contained in this real name alone is larger than all the knowledge that a spellcaster has mastered. Because this real name contains almost all the information of Sumu. If this real name is translated into words that all the Aborigines and players in the game world can understand, Sumu's real name is Abyss. Yes, Abyss. It's not the same name. It's the term that Sumu often heard in fiction, film and television, and other fantasy works in the real world when he was a human, Abyss. Before Sumu was reborn, there was no Abyss in this world. There was no Abyss in this world until Sumu became a real dimensional demon. In Sumu, he became a real dimensional demon, and in Sumu determined the power of Erosion 633 as the source of his own dimensional world, and in the last step of the transformation of the dimensional world, when his real name was born from the source of law. The Abyss was finally born. Sumu is the Abyss. His dimensional world is the Abyss world. 7 deadly sins. And the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Once. These are just Sumu's ambitions, and they are the goals that Sumu has set for himself on the way to the goal of being the strongest boss in history. Now, all of this seems to be a reality. Abyss. Lord of the Abyss. The Abyss dominates. With the birth of his true name, the 7 deadly sins represented by the gluttonous insect king, and the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse represented by Agnes and Augustine gradually became a reality. After all, in those many legends, the Abyss is the natural enemy of all worlds and the terminator of all worlds. Beneath the Abyss. The 7 deadly sins and the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse are not the world-destroying demon kings who brought the end to the world. Real name. Born from the source of law. It is Sumu's most fundamental logo in this game world. This real name is different from the real name of the legendary demon. Even if Sumu's real name is known, it is impossible to control Sumu or even enslave Sumu with just one real name. Real name, just information. If someone can parse out Sumu's real name, at best he can know all of Sumu's attributes, skills, talents, equipment, etc., and wants to rely on a real name to deal with Sumu. Just wishful thinking. Of course. Abyss is the translation of the real name. Just relying on the name of the Abyss, no one can analyze Sumu's real name. Unless he actively exposes it, it is difficult to parse out this kind of real name that is known and irrelevant. The birth of a god is enough to shake countless worlds. So is the birth of a demon god. Sumu doesn't know. When he completed the final step, when his real name was also born from the source of the law, the main material world, the planes, and even the advanced planes. All kinds of celestial phenomena begin to reveal a world whose energy level is still above the continent of Anriel. When Sumu's real name Abyss was born from the source of the law, the whole world was enveloped in a soft, holy light, and even the center of the world where real angels appeared from time to time. A man surrounded by holy light, the battle angel, stood in front of a pure white hall, looking at the sky that suddenly dimmed. The gods are born. If it is to believe in a god, it should be the title and priesthood of that god that rings at this moment. Only the dimension demon is born. This kind of vision of heaven and earth, which only has celestial phenomena but no divine sound, will appear. And the darkened sky. Undoubtedly, the newly born dimension demon god is a dimension demon god belonging to the dark camp. The last 3 years. Until my lord awakens. All darkness will be purified. Unreal continent. When Sumu's real name was born, the celestial phenomenon revealed by the main material world, which was deeply influenced by Sumu, was even more amazing. Day turns to night. Fear looms. At this moment, every living person feels a touch of fear from the heart, as if some kind of terrifying existence capable of destroying the whole world was born at this moment. The Holy Light Pope has records handed down from the Holy Light Empire. There are also many handwritten notes left by spellcasters in the Farland Kingdom. Even the Dwarven Empire has learned a lot from its ancestors. So, when these kinds of celestial phenomena appeared, they realized that a god of the dark camp was born. The gods are still sleeping. A god in the dark has been born. Sure enough, it is the last counterattack of darkness before the light comes. Only, I don't know that the birth of this dark camp god will have a world that will be affected or even destroyed. Emperor Roland Continent. A team of players is fighting monsters in the wilderness. When Sumu's real name was born from the source of law, the sky darkened suddenly, as if noon approached evening in an instant. That team of players felt that endless fear was born from their hearts, and their combat power was weakened a lot at this moment. And the monster on the opposite side exuding a vicious aura, but at this moment, he let out a long roar, and the aura emanating from his body suddenly soared, killing all the players in this team in 3 or 2 strokes. After all this is done, the monster, which was obviously from the dark camp, was crawling on the ground, whimpering constantly. Like a tribute. It's like congratulating the birth of a god in the dark camp. Plane of death. In this world filled with the purest aura of death and darkness, at the bottom of the layers of floating continents, there is an extremely vast continent of death. When Sumu's real name was born, in the center of this dead continent, on the facade of a huge building that is majestic beyond anyone's imagination, a dark blue soul fire is burning quietly. Sumu became a god. The breath of death and darkness of the entire death plane surged violently. But that faint blue soul fire jumped slightly. A slight soul fluctuation also spread out from this dark blue soul fire. Dimension Demon God VN? Abyss? I don't know if that old friend became a god at this time. Unfortunately, it is difficult to change the status quo of the dark camp because the dimensional demon god, whose combat power has been greatly reduced just by leaving his own dimensional world. 3 years. The last 3 years. Perhaps. The plan to confer a god of darkness will also be launched as soon as possible. One world. One by one. When the image of the day came and the void ocean moved, countless existences knew that there was a dimensional demon god who had advanced to the gods at this moment. Only, even the most powerful beings only know that the existence that has just become a god is called Abyss. I don't even know where this dimensional world called Abyss is. A new god is born, even if it is only a dimensional demon god, not a god of faith. But it has a huge impact on the pattern of the game world. Dark counterattack. This situation does exist, and it is not a casual remark of the Holy Light Pope. Only, the real dark counterattack did not happen in the Unreal Continent, nor did it happen in the main material worlds where players descended. In other worlds, the undead, magical beasts, and even the marginal races that are hostile to humans in the high-energy main material world have indeed launched a frantic attack on the ruling races of the main material world. And the source of these attacks is undoubtedly those demigods and evil gods hidden in the dark. Of course, these have nothing to do with Sumu for the time being. It has nothing to do with players from the real world. After all, in the past, all of this happens without the player's knowledge. The dark counterattacks in the high-energy main material worlds are just the background stories of the players. Even until the real world of the previous life was destroyed, players did not have time to step into the high-energy world and get in touch with the background stories that happened in the scene. Because of Sumu's promotion. Because of the appearance of the Abyss Demon God. This life. Those demigods and evil gods are even more eager for the consecration of gods, and the dark counterattacks in the high-energy level main material worlds are even more ferocious and tragic than their previous lives. Dimensional World. After completely completing the promotion, Sumu opened his attribute panel, looking at the dimensional world that had completely stabilized. At this time, his properties panel has become Name: Lord of the Undead, Sumu. Race: Dimensional Demon God. Template: Legendary Profession Template Undead Tyrant. Level 90. Status: Life 100.05 million, Waste Power 82 million. Attributes: Strength 550,000, Agility 530,000, Constitution 550,000, Spirit 520,000. Talent: Erosion, the only talent. Origin: the power of fear, the power of death. Skills: Ice Age, original skill, Natural Disaster Comes, original skill, Body of the King, original skill, Mark of the King, original skill, Death Cut, original skill, Phase Shift, original skill, Imprisoned Hand, original skill, Smashing Slash, original skill, Aura of Scourge, Shaping of Undead, Ice skills, omitted, Forging skills, omitted. Free points, 183,000 points. Except for the four-dimensional attributes and the increase in health and magic values brought about by the level increase, his attribute panel does not seem to have changed much. Because the real change is in the dimension panel. Dimension: Abyss World can be renamed. Level: Small World, Level 1. Origin: The Power of Erosion. Effect: Energy Drain, Battle Power Amplification, Plane Folding, Plane Projection, Plane Erosion. Sumu's real name is Abyss. The dimensional world he possesses is naturally also called the Abyss World. To this point, Sumu did not intend to modify it. He likes the name Abyss World very much, and if possible, he prefers to develop his Abyss World into an endless abyss in the future. Level: Small World, Level 1, is basically equivalent to just being conferred a god and becoming a god of belief in a lower god. Only, when outside the dimension world, Sumu's combat power is far less than that of a subordinate god who has been enthroned. Within the dimension world, can easily suppress or even kill a subordinate god. And before no one finds the location of the Abyss World, it is to face the middle god or even the upper god. He can also leave calmly and return to his own dimension world. From this point of view, Sumu at this time has initially had the confidence to intervene in the War of Gods and the war between the gods. Area. Because of the formation of the crystal wall of the world and the birth of the mystery of the world, the small world also refers to the energy level, not the area. At this time, the Abyss World was extremely vast, no less than the Duan continent. So, there is no point in continuing to calculate the area within the world. The column disappears on its own. The source, of course, is the power of erosion. This mysterious power from Sumu's talent has become the source of the Abyss World, not only making the entire Abyss World full of abyssal aura similar to the demonic energy that Sumu erupted, but also making these abyss aura similar to Sumu's Muon effect. Living beings. Even the undead. Once contaminated with abyss breath, it will continue to fall toward the abyss. If it cannot be eliminated in time with the same level or even higher level of power, the existence of the sanctuary and even the demigod level will gradually be eroded by the abyss and become a unique abyss monster, bound by the abyss world. Same. It is also because of the integration of the power of erosion that Sumu obtained the fifth ability from the dimensional world, plane erosion, after being promoted to the dimension demon. Just as Sumu erodes the living and the undead. The so-called plane erosion. It is the erosion of the abyss world on other planes and worlds. The target of erosion is naturally designated by Sumu, the Abyss Lord. The process of erosion is also controlled by Sumu, the Abyss Lord. And once a plane or world is eroded, it does not require a lot of free points after swallowing it, and the Abyss world will evolve towards a higher-level world on its own. If we assume Sumu, who has the talent of erosion, is an outlier among the living and undead, and if he devours other beings by erosion to grow himself. The Abyss world with the power of erosion as its source. It is the aliens in the plane and the world. Strengthen yourself by eroding other planes and worlds, devouring other planes and worlds. Of course, if the free points are enough, Sumu can still use the free points to upgrade the level of the Abyss world, which greatly shortens the time it takes for the Abyss world to move from a small world to a medium-sized world and a large-scale world. The promotion of a small world requires 1 million free points for each level. The promotion of the medium-sized world requires 10 million free points for each level. The promotion of a large world requires 100 million free points for each level. If only relying on plundering faith, I am afraid that Sumu will plunder all the power of faith in the temples of all gods, and I am afraid it will not be enough for his dimensional world promotion. At this time, the appearance of the ability of plane erosion is very necessary. It erodes other planes and worlds, devours other planes and worlds, and uses other planes and worlds as nutrients to promote its own growth. In this way, the number of free points required to advance again will be greatly reduced. Planar erosion and free points parallel string. The combination of the two can make the Abyss world develop at the fastest speed. Same. It can also make Sumu climb from the lower gods to the middle and upper gods at the fastest speed. Abyss world. After checking the changes on his attribute panel, Sumu's mind moved, and he was connected with the source of darkness that had evolved towards the heart of the world. No, the source of darkness at this time should be called the source of the abyss. Time required. He has transformed from an ordinary peak sanctuary to the master of the entire abyss world. The entire abyss world, the energy in the entire abyss world, the laws and rules in the entire abyss world, and even everything in the entire abyss world are all under his control. Abyss breath. Abyssal magic. This unique power, which combines the breath of death, the breath of darkness, and the power of erosion, has also become the symbol of the abyss world. And when the world's promotion is finished, a lot of plants and animals have also been born in the world he has. Only born from the abyss world and bathed in the abyss demonic energy, these unique creatures are completely different from the creatures in the main material world. Even plants, they also eat meat and have hunting instincts. Even animals are crazy, full of violence and fury. To be precise, all these creatures born from the abyss world, or the creatures and undead who were subsequently eroded by the abyss demonic energy, all have a common name: abyss monsters. Of course, same as Anjuan continent. In the abyss world of low energy level, the abyss monsters born naturally can only be promoted to the peak of the legendary rank. If you want to break through from the peak of the legendary rank to the sanctuary, either wait until the abyss world is promoted from a small world, that is, a low-level world, to a medium-sized world, that is, a high-level world, or Sumu, the abyss master himself, take action and break the upper limit of abyss monsters. The whole world is under the control of Sumu. Naturally, there will not be a situation like the Anjuan continent, but the power of the world gave birth to the holy domain of Augustine, which made the rules of the Anjuan continent loose and full of loopholes. At best, it consumes some world origin. And these world origins can be recovered by devouring other planes and worlds, or absorbing the energy in the void ocean on their own. As long as it's not a massive spawning sanctuary. For the Abyss world, it is not a big problem. At the same time, because he has become an Abyss demon god and is on par with gods in terms of personality, it is difficult for Sumu to enter the main material world at this time. Want to enter the main material world? Or, with the help of the ability of plane projection, manifest his own energy incarnation in the main material world. Or, you can only break the world crystal wall of the main material world, and at the same time fight against the laws and rules in the main material world, forcibly descend to the main material world. For a god of faith whose existence is based on the power of faith, forcibly descending into a main material world is tantamount to destroying the world. This has a huge negative impact on the belief in God itself. For a demon like Sumu, the impact is almost zero. Dimensional Devil. Abyss Demon. Since it is a demon god, isn't it reasonable to think about destroying several worlds? In addition, not all worlds are inaccessible to Sumu. Some worlds that have been broken have their own laws and rules broken. This kind of world has lost even the instinct of the world, and even the laws and rules of the world are incomplete. Naturally, it will not resist the entry of gods and demons. This kind of world, whether it is a demon like Sumu or a god like a believer in a god, can enter it without hindrance. Among the most famous, it is the shattered world of the plane of death. Mind a move. Fusion with the Abyss world. When all the control of the entire Abyss world was in his own hands, Sumu's mind moved again and began to transform the Abyss world. Take time. Heaven and earth change color. In the center of the Abyss world, a mountain range that was not tall at first rose rapidly, and in a few breaths, it became a majestic mountain range spanning tens of thousands of miles and as high as tens of thousands of feet. The mountains face south and north. The branches of the mountain ranges in the other three directions normally extend in the three directions of east, west, and north, but the mountain range in the south stopped abruptly, forming a flat cliff with a height of 10,000 jung. The two branches extend from east and west, and together with the huge cliff that is 10,000 feet high, they form a plain with tens of millions of square kilometers. On this plain, there are rivers, lakes, and ghost forests. The first transformation is completed. Subsequently, Sumu's figure appeared at the top of the 10,000 jung peak. With his thoughts, the peak of this mountain that is soaring into the sky also began to change drastically. The top of the mountain was flattened. Form a huge platform. And on this huge platform, a majestic hall with a height of hundreds of feet slowly rose up. The pure black hall exudes a simple and mysterious atmosphere. When this temple-like hall was formed, all kinds of stone tables and chairs, all kinds of walls, pavilions, and corridors also took shape. When Sumu transplanted many gorgeous plants specializing in the Abyss world to the top of the mountain, a majestic, gorgeous, simple, and mysterious palace group was formed. If it is built by manpower, even with the participation of legendary heroes and epic heroes, it would take hundreds or even thousands of years to build such a huge building complex on the top of the 10,000 demonic mountain. And what about Sumu? With just one thought, the world itself will complete his vision. The palace complex is built. This is his base camp. In that building complex, he also set aside the residences and places of rest for many high-level undead, such as Agnes, Augustine, and Nefarian. Of course, only by stepping into the sanctuary can you be qualified to enter this building complex. From now on, this magic mountain is the real power center of the Abyss world. The second step is completed. After completing all this, Sumu's eyes turned to the vast plain that he had deliberately set aside. Mind a move. A huge city was formed at the foot of Wanjong Magic Mountain. This huge city can accommodate tens of millions of people. With a huge central square as the center and 6 main roads with a width of hundreds of meters as the boundary, the entire city is divided into various functions. Area. In each functional area, there are corresponding functional buildings such as blacksmith shop, tailor shop, general store, exchange, martial arts field, arena, etc. It can be said, in addition to being unpopular, and there are no items that need to be made through forging, smelting, alchemy, etc., this huge empty city is already extremely perfect. On the edge of the city center square, there are 2 rows of hundreds of boundary teleportation arrays. In the 4 corners of the city center square, there are also 4 huge resurrection stone tablets. Even the ground in the city has already been paved with a kind of black hard stone, which is a specialty of the Abyss world. This kind of stone can only leave traces on it if it has reached the legendary rank. This city is naturally prepared for players. The player will be one of the most important forces under his command. Whether it is before, now, or in the future, this is the case. Now that his own Abyss world has been formed, his base camp has also been transferred from the Unreal continent to this Abyss world. The more than 6 million players who have joined their own camp will naturally have their base camp in the Abyss world. City of the Undead. This is the 3rd stage of the development of the Undead camp that Sumu has set for players when starting the Undead camp, and it is also the mission goal of the last stage. Now, Sumu achieves the Abyss Demon God, and the mission goal of this stage is also completed. Only, his race has changed from the Undead race to the Dimension Demon God. To be precise, it is the Abyss Demon God among the Dimension Demon Gods. This Undead main city should also be called the Abyss Main City. An Abyss Main City that can accommodate tens of millions of people is enough to accommodate those players who have joined the Undead camp. But, in the future, Sumu will convert more and more players to join their faction. This Abyss Main City will become more and more insufficient. But this huge plain surrounded by 2 branches and cliffs was originally prepared by him for the players. The main Abyss City can be expanded at any time. Around the main Abyss City, there have also been 6 relatively small satellite cities. No matter how many players will join the Undead faction in the future, with Sumu sitting on a sprawling world, there will always be a place for them. By this time, Sumu's transformation of the Abyss world is basically completed. Those boundary teleportation formations are enough to allow countless players to travel freely between Anda continent and Unreal continent. After the discovery of the new main material world, after Sumu casts space beacons on the new main material world and builds a new teleportation array, players of the Undead camp can also travel freely between these new worlds through the realm teleportation array. Wait until the many high-level Undead settle in. Wait until the Lich King, the Skeleton Blacksmith, the Corpse Tailor, and the Alchemist have settled in this Abyss main city and 6 satellite cities. All the functions of this Abyss main city will then be opened. As time goes by, they will slowly get used to the fact that the main Abyss city is their home base. The final modification is completed. After doing all this, after half a year, Sumu's mind moved and communicated with the outside world again. Unreal Continent. City of the Dead. During the 6 months that Sumu left, the Undead Empire was peaceful. In addition to the Undead camp players from time to time will go out in teams, or fight monsters to upgrade, or attack the city, the high-level Undead headed by the Sanctuary Undead, but they've been staying in the city. They didn't go out. The 3 major forces will not take the initiative to attack. With all the main material worlds facing dark counterattacks, the Unreal continent spent an extremely rare 3 months of calm. This day, when Sumu in the Abyss world completed everything, a message suddenly emerged from the minds of all the high-level Undead that Sumu had personally subdued and enslaved. Immediately after, these high-level Undead with the lowest legendary rank rushed to the city center square of the City of Death at the fastest speed. Then, an illusory figure suddenly jumped out of Agnes' body and appeared in front of them. Planar projection. This phantom is exactly the projection of their lord in this world. Not only Agnes, but every high-level Undead body has such a plane projection from Sumu, which is convenient for them to use the power of their lord when necessary, and also for Sumu when necessary. Appears in the main material worlds in the form of energy incarnations. the plane projection jumped out. Infinite power is poured into this projection along the connection between the body and the projection, turning this projection into the energy incarnation of Sumu. Subsequently, comes. Under the circumstance that the demon god was extremely repelled by the main material world, Sumu appeared in the Unreal continent in this way, in this city of death. Subsequently, Sumu mobilized the power in his body, and a dense space power spread out, superimposing the space of the abyss world and part of the space of the Unreal continent. Then, his mind moved. The energy avatar disappeared together with these many high-level undead in the city of death.
Thank you for watching Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day.